The dust rose high in the late afternoon sun, shimmering like heat off a forge, and somewhere down that empty road, a wagon creaked under the weight of sorrow. Inside it sat a girl, broad-shouldered, taller than most men's wives, with eyes full of shame she didn't deserve. They had sold her like cattle, because her frame didn't fit the delicate mold her family thought a woman should. They said you're too big for any man, the trader barked, spitting tobacco into the dry dirt as he snapped the reins. But I'll fetch something for you at auction. Somebody'll take a liking. Somebody always does. Her hands were bound in front, rough rope cutting at her skin. Her hair, once brushed gently by her mother, was now tangled by the desert wind. She didn't cry, though her chest ached. Tears meant weakness, and weakness was what they accused her of the day they turned her away. But fate doesn't always move in straight lines. Sometimes it bends sharp, like a rattler striking when you least expect it. When the wagon rolled into town, men gathered like buzzards, eyes narrowing, lips curling. Laughter rose when the trader lifted her chin for them to see. Too broad. Would crush a man in bed. Not worth the boots she's wearin'. Each word stabbed, but she held her head still. She thought no worse thing could happen than being sold like a mule in front of jeering faces. But then she saw him. A cowboy leaned against the post by the saloon, hat tipped low, dust clinging to his boots. He had the kind of calm about him that comes from fighting battles you don't talk about. His jaw was rough with stubble, his eyes sharp as hawks, but when they landed on her, they didn't sneer. They softened, just a fraction, but enough to make her heart stutter. The trader called for bids. Silence stretched, broken only by coughs and a few chuckles. Nobody wanted her. Nobody offered a dime, until the cowboy spoke. His voice rolled steady, deep, carrying through the heat. I'll take her. The crowd turned. Some laughed. Some spat. The trader blinked. You'll pay. The cowboy tossed a pouch heavy with silver. More than she's worth to you. Gasps rippled. The trader's greed silenced doubt. He shoved the girl forward, rope still tight. She stumbled, but before she fell, the cowboy's arms caught her, arms strong, sure, steady as stone. He whispered, low so only she could hear, you're just right for my arms. Her throat tightened. She'd been called many things, too big, too much, not enough, but never just right. The trader walked off with his coins, the crowd dispersing with mutters and disbelief. The cowboy didn't speak further, just guided her with a hand at her back, not rough, not careless. He led her past the saloon, past the staring eyes, out toward the edge of town where his horse waited. Only when they were alone did he cut her bonds. The rope fell, and she rubbed her wrists, raw from restraint. You're free now, he said. She stared. Free. But, you bought me. I bought your freedom. What you do with it's your choice. Her chest rose sharp with air she didn't know she'd been starving for. She should have run. She should have turned her back. But her feet stayed rooted. Something in his steady gaze told her he wasn't done, and neither was she. They rode together in silence for miles, the desert stretching endless around them. Coyotes called in the distance. The sun dipped low, painting the sky blood orange. At last she asked, why did you do it? He shifted in the saddle, not looking at her. Because I've seen men break under chains, and I've seen women broken by words. Nobody deserves either. You were worth more than what they said. Her eyes burned hot, though no tears fell. She bit her lip, staring ahead. That night, they camped. Near a dry creek bed. The fire crackled low, smoke curling into the cool air. He handed her a tin plate of beans, the kind of rough meal ranch hands lived on. She ate in silence, but the warmth filled more than her belly. He didn't ask her past, didn't pry, didn't treat her like something he owned. He simply sat near, watchful but not suffocating. For the first time in months, maybe years, she slept without fear. But peace doesn't linger long on the frontier. At dawn, the pounding of hooves woke her. She jolted upright, fear slicing through her chest. A group of riders was approaching fast, dust clouds rising behind them. The cowboy was already on his feet, revolver drawn. The leader of the riders sneered. That girl ain't yours. She was promised to the Granger boys. You think you can steal from them? The cowboy stepped forward, calm but deadly. I didn't steal. I bought. And she's free now. She ain't going anywhere she don't choose. The riders laughed, ugly and sharp. We'll see about that. Gunfire split the morning. She screamed, ducking low, but the cowboy moved like he'd done it all his life, fast, precise. Two men fell before the others even raised their rifles. Dust and blood mingled in the air. When the last rider fled, cursing, the cowboy stood breathing hard, head knocked to the dirt, sweat dripping. He turned to her, eyes searching. "You all right?" Her hands shook, but she nodded. "Why risk your life for me?" His jaw tightened. "Because you're not theirs. And I'll be damned if they take what doesn't belong to them." Something inside her cracked then, something brittle that had been holding her together too long. Tears fell hot down her face, and she didn't care if he saw. He reached out, hesitant at first, then pulled her close. She pressed against him, trembling, his chest solid under her cheek. He smelled of dust, leather, and smoke, and somehow it felt like home. "You're safe," he murmured. "Not just for tonight. For as long as you'll let me keep you safe." Her breath hitched. Nobody had ever offered her that. Not family, not kin, not anyone. Safety, choice, dignity. They buried the dead riders shallow, leaving the desert to finish what the earth began. Then they rode on, toward his ranch tucked between low hills and wide fields. The place was simple, weathered barn, small cabin, corral where 2 horses grazed. But to her, it looked like a kingdom. She worked beside him, not as a servant but as an equal. She lifted fence posts with strength he didn't mock, carried water buckets with ease. He only smiled, sometimes with quiet pride, as if every task she did proved what he'd known from the start, that she wasn't too big, too much, or wrong. She was exactly what was needed. Nights by the fire grew softer. Laughter crept in, slow at first, then steady, until she found herself smiling without shame. One evening, under a sky thick with stars, he spoke again. "You know, the day I saw you in that wagon, I thought you looked like someone who'd been made to carry the weight of the world. But when I held you, I realized, maybe the world was meant to rest easier in your arms." She stared at him, throat tight. "And you? What of you?" He reached, brushing a strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering. "Me, I reckon I've been waiting all my life for arms strong enough to carry me, too." The desert wind hushed. The stars seemed to burn brighter. And for once, she didn't feel too much. She felt just right. But the frontier isn't a place for fairy tales. Trouble always rides again. The Granger boys weren't done. They returned with more men, more guns, and this time, fire in their eyes. The ranch went up in flames, the barn catching first, then the corral. Horses screamed, smoke choking the night. The cowboy shoved her toward the cabin. "Get inside. Stay down." But she didn't. Not this time. She grabbed the rifle from the wall, hands steady, jaw set. When the first man came charging through the smoke, she fired. He fell, and her heart didn't break. It hardened. They fought side by side, back to back, fire raging around them. Each shot rang like thunder, each cry of pain from their enemies like justice. When the smoke cleared, bodies littered the ground, and the ranch was half ash. But they were alive. Bruised, bloodied, shaking, but alive. She dropped the rifle, chest heaving, and looked at him. He was bleeding from his shoulder, hat lost again, but his eyes, those steady, storm-born eyes, were on her. "You saved me," he whispered. "No," she said, voice raw but strong. "We saved each other." And in that ruined land, with ash still falling like snow, she knew she was home. Not because of walls or fields, but because of the man who had seen her worth when the world had spat her out. The West was cruel. The West was merciless. But sometimes, against all odds, it gave you one thing that made the fight worth it. For her, it was him. And for him, it was her, just right in his arms.